For those of you who are not familiar with Sacred Threads, I'd like just to give you a little snippet so that you get the flavor of who we are.
Grace begins with eye contact, compassion. We have to look in each other's eyes.
It is in the community. It is in the sharing. It is in coming together in that vulnerable place that God lives.
This is about all of us. This isn't just about politics. It isn't about international conflict. It isn't about, big high-stakes negotiations. It's not. It's about all of us negotiating and searching for our own dignity.
Sacred Threads has truly been transformational in my life.
I think that Sacred Threads has strengthened my commitment to the spiritual growth of my family.
I feel that Sacred Threads, I love the name, Sacred Threads, is a connecting organization.
We have found that the connections that women have been making through their relationships, through coming to Sacred Threads events, through the circles, through spiritual direction and pastoral counseling, Sacred Threads has become a way for women to bond more deeply with one another through spirituality.
I came to Sacred Threads after a really horrendous experience. My husband died very tragically 3 years ago, and I was desperate for that kind of connection. And Rosemary and Sacred Threads, they weren't a thread, they were a lifeline.
And we met several women who were hanging on literally by a thread, others whose lives were really entangled and gnarled up in a variety of ways, and still other people whose lives were laced with guilt, shame, whatever. And deep within each of them was a void and a sacredness and a thirst for the spiritual and for the divine. When you follow Jesus in the gospel, it's always in the midst of suffering, struggle, or the unexpected that God's present. That God is in those horrible things that I'd rather give back, that I'd rather not experience, that I'd rather not wrestle with.
Rosemary and I are committed to bringing cutting-edge speakers, because you can read all the books you want, but to actually interact with a speaker, I think, gives these men and women a phenomenal opportunity.
When you're sure about something, I'm sure many of you have this in your life with what you do. When you're sure about something, you get an extra boost from somewhere, right? You get an extra inspiration, you get extra energy, you get extra confidence, I think is a good word.
But unity triumphs over conflict. And in our beloved Roman Catholic Church, we've got some triumphing to do. But I do think there's a hunger for connection. It's not about doctrine. It's not about rules. It's about community.
I'm a Presbyterian now. We talk about the Apostle Paul, who says that God's grace is sufficient for me. So we kind of box God in sometimes, I think, when we talk about grace in religious terms, because I believe that grace was around before religion began, because God has always been here.
None of us have the whole answer, and each one of us can learn from the other. And so I think as our world gets smaller in many ways, we need more unity. And so this approach enables us to learn from one another. We're all really on different paths to the same end. So why not be enriched by what other people can teach us? And Marie and I have actually gained greatly ourselves.
I'm so emotional thinking about these two women, Rosemary and Marie, because they have been there for me in so many different times in my life, and have called on me to share my gift of music. And I feel like that is, we're asked to share our gifts, right? And so I feel it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And in the setting that they create in the people that they bring together, who are hungering for a way to show their love for God and to do the work and do with the work, whatever that is.
Sacred Threads has been very special to me and my husband particularly. We're retired now, and finding where God's ways of recycling us with our gifts. I'm a professor. We still have some energy and some of these gifts left to give to the world. And consequently, it's good to be with kindred spirit, like Sacred Threads, where we can be open about our issues as well as be sources of experience and even a bit of wisdom for the younger ones.
After coming out of the early years in religious life, that was very traditional. I feel all of the stories of these women have opened me up in different ways and have gotten me to maybe deal with issues that I may not have dealt with had I stayed in that traditional mode.
Think about how resilient we can be if we know that even if somebody mistreats us, it doesn't mean we're worthless. Right?
Once you stay on the ground in a remote area where you don't have infrastructure and you don't have planes and you don't have TV and there's no distractions, you are forced to look in the eye of the person in front of you. You are forced to listen to that person, and you are forced to cry with them if they're in pain. And that's what happened to us in South Sudan. A mother's pain became our pain. Her story became our story. And a way to try to heal her was a way to heal myself.
But everybody has a different shape. And there must be room for everyone's shape. Whoa. Isn't that sacred? That God makes no mistakes, and so everyone is welcome. If we want to meet God, there has to be room for everyone in our concern, in our care, in our love.
What can we expect for the future from Sacred Threads? I can't imagine where we're headed.
And we're trying to imagine where we're heading as well. I think we want to expand and grow what we've begun. And that may even spread and grow to different parts of the country.
4 years ago, my faith was pretty limited. And I went to that very first event where you spoke and got excited about the circles they were forming, joined a circle. We met once a month. I found other women who were interested in the same questions I was interested in.
For me, it's exciting to see other women that are feeling this inclusion, this support from each other. And for myself, I came to think that, these are the threads that are binding all of us together.